You open your bank app again. Paycheck came in, bills went out, nothing crazy happened, and somehow you're already back at that skinny little number that makes your stomach tighten. You're not out blowing money on designer bags. You're not buying a new gadget every week. You're being reasonable. Rent, car, groceries, a couple nights out, some takeout because you were tired. It all feels normal. And here's the part that really stings. According to the Federal Reserve, only about 63% of adults say they could cover a $400 emergency from cash or savings, or with a card they could pay off right away. Flip it around and roughly 37% would have to swipe a card and carry the balance, borrow, or just not pay it if something small broke this week. And a 2025 report from PNC found about 67% of U.S. workers are living paycheck to paycheck. That's 2 out of 3 people basically needing that next payday just to stay afloat. So if nothing changes, 10 years from now, you're probably still doing this dance, still hoping nothing big breaks, still feeling like one bad month could knock the whole thing over. But if you're willing to trade a chunk of comfort now, you get something your feed never really shows you: money quietly growing in the background, a buffer that actually stays there, and the ability to make real choices instead of just taking whatever life hands you. My name is Joe, and I'm obsessed with how money actually behaves in real life. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes hearing. You're not failing because you're lazy or bad with money. You're failing because you're trying to keep a full, normal lifestyle and build wealth at the same time. The system taught you that's possible. The math says it isn't. There are 7 sacrifices that actually move the needle. Most people are already suffering all the stress and guilt of sacrifice, with none of the payoff. So here's what I want to show you: the 7 things you really have to give up to build wealth, how long you have to give them up for, and why that's way less depressing than it sounds. Quick thing before we get into it though, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not personal financial advice. I'm just some guy on the internet who spends way too much time looking at how money actually works in real life. Use this as education and ideas to think about, not a blueprint for your exact life. If you're making big money moves, talk to a professional who actually understands your situation and your numbers. You're not bad with money. You're fully booked. Picture your paycheck like a row of little envelopes: rent, car, groceries, debt payment, streaming, gym, food delivery, random "I had a bad day" purchases. You don't sit down and assign every dollar, but in practice, that's exactly what's happening. By the time the month is halfway over, every dollar already has a job. There's nothing left for build wealth because stay afloat took the whole budget. Now, add this on top. U.S. credit card balances have climbed to around $1.2 trillion, and the average interest rate on cards that carry a balance is north of 22% right now. That's not, oops, one bad weekend. That's an entire economy quietly leaning on double-digit interest just to keep normal life running. So, when you try to save an extra $200 and it somehow disappears, of course it does. Your whole lifestyle is calibrated to use almost everything you make. There is no spare room. One emergency, one impulse, and boom, gone. That's the first big shift. Stop thinking I'm bad with money and start thinking my lifestyle percentage is maxed out. Until that percentage drops, wealth literally cannot form. So, what do you actually have to sacrifice to change that? Sacrifice number 1, your current lifestyle percentage. Not your entire lifestyle, not joy, not friends, the percentage. Someone earning the same income as you can feel either broke or comfortable depending on one thing: what percent of that income their life consumes. If you live at 98%, almost every dollar going out the door, you stay stuck. If you live at, say, 75 to 80% for a while, you create a gap big enough to matter. On paper, your life looks reasonable. The bills are paid, and nothing is insane. But there's a catch. If your lifestyle eats almost every dollar, the math guarantees you stay stuck. You can be the most disciplined person on the planet, but if your rent, car, food, subscriptions, and little things all add up to 95 to 100% of your income, there's nowhere for wealth to sit. It's like trying to fill a savings bucket that's already occupied by your current lifestyle. Quick math. Say you take home $5,000 a month, live at 95%, that's $4,750 of lifestyle and $250 left. You invest $250 a month and it's something, but it feels painfully slow. Live at 80%, that's $4,000 of lifestyle and $1,000 left. Same job, same income, just a different lifestyle percentage. That gap is 4 times bigger. Over a year, that's $12,000 invested instead of $3,000. Over a decade before growth, that's $120,000 versus $30,000. And that's before compounding even shows up. One of the biggest levers inside that percentage, cars. Right now, Experian data says the average payment for a new car is about $748 a month, while the average used car payment is around $532. That's about a $216 difference every single month for what is often just newer trim and a smell that disappears in a week. Quick math, $216 a month is $2,592 a year. Over a 5-year loan, that's nearly $13,000. Invest that instead for another decade or two, and you're easily into 5-figure growth on top of that if your investments actually grow over time. Same income, same person, different lifestyle percentage, different future. The big sacrifice isn't one latte. It's deciding that for the next 5 to 10 years, your lifestyle has to fit in a smaller box than your income will allow. And even if you are willing to do that, there's something else that quietly eats that gap before it ever touches an investment account. Sacrifice number 2, convenience that quietly taxes you. You get home late, you're wiped, and the idea of chopping vegetables is laughable. So you grab your phone, tap 2 buttons, and food shows up at your door again. You tell yourself it's just a few extra bucks. Except when people actually looked at food delivery habits. One recent survey found people using delivery apps were spending over $1,500 a year on delivery, with each order around $35 and about 3 to 4 orders a month. That's just one convenience category. Add ride shares instead of buses, rush shipping instead of waiting, paying someone to clean instead of doing it yourself. You tell yourself you're just buying back a little time, but there's a catch. Those tiny convenience fees add up to months or even years of extra work you don't see. Quick math. Say, delivery, ride shares, and other I'm tired choices are costing you $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. Over 10 years, even before investment growth, that's $24,000. Invested and left alone, now you're talking serious money. This is where someone always says, "Joe, I'm exhausted. My time is worth something. I can't cook every meal and scrub every floor while working full time." And you're right, once you're past the build phase. When you already have meaningful investments working for you, buying back time is one of the best things you can do. In the wealth building phase, though, every $30 you trade for 10 minutes of saved effort is 10 minutes today versus entire years of earlier freedom later. You're trading future Saturdays where you don't have to work at all for tonight's 30 minutes of not cooking. That's a harsh trade. Even if you fix convenience, there's something deeper going on. Your brain has been trained to expect everything instantly. Sacrifice number 3, immediate gratification and the apps that feed it. You think you're choosing to buy things, but there's a catch. The apps are designed so your brain never gets a chance to cool off before the money leaves. Think about how this actually works. You're scrolling, you see something that looks nice. There's a one-tap Buy Now button. The card is already saved. There's a countdown timer, maybe a only 3 left label. There is zero friction between wanting and buying. Meanwhile, the friction to save is still old school. Open another app, log in, decide an amount, confirm, wait 2 days for a transfer. Of course, spending wins. Psychology research on delayed gratification, going all the way back to the famous marshmallow experiments and updated in newer studies, keeps finding the same core pattern. People who can wait for a better reward are more likely to save, avoid high-interest debt, and build more financial stability over time. Delayed gratification isn't some moral virtue your grandparents liked. It literally shows up in midlife finances. So, you have to build your own friction. Here's a rule I like. If it's not rent, bills, groceries, or gas, it sits for 24 hours. For bigger wants, gadgets, clothes, random treat-yourself stuff, it sits for 30 days. Quick math. If you stop just 3 $60 impulse buys a month with a 30-day rule, that's $180 you didn't burn. That's over $2,000 a year. Over a decade, you're looking at 5 figures that either went to a pile of forgotten stuff or into your future. Some of you are thinking, okay, I get the brain science, but I don't really buy big flashy stuff. I don't have design or anything. Is this actually my problem? So let's talk about status, because it's sneakier than just luxury brands. Sacrifice number 4, looking rich. So other people think you're winning. Status isn't just the obvious stuff. Sometimes it's the car upgrade, the phone refresh every year, the fancy gym, the just this once vacation that quietly goes on a card. Research on real-world millionaires, the millionaire next door crowd, has shown for years that a lot of them are not the people driving the flashiest cars or wearing the loudest brands. That car or bag makes you look successful for a minute, but there's a catch. Every status purchase quietly lowers the only number that actually decides your freedom, your net worth. Net worth doesn't care how impressive your life looks. It cares about assets minus debt. That's it. That upgrade from a perfectly fine car to a statement car, often it's just a bigger loan. That vacation you put on a card, it's not on your Instagram anymore, but it is still on your statement. That must-have watch, same time, less money. Remember that $216 New Via's used car payment gap? Over 5 years, that's nearly $13,000. Stretch that habit over multiple car cycles, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that either go into metal and plastic or into assets that can pay you back. I'm not saying you can never own a nice car or a nice bag. I am saying, during your wealth building window, every status purchase is like drilling a tiny hole in your future freedom. And yeah, that means you might drive the older Honda while your coworker flexes the brand new SUV. It means your clothes might be from normal shops while your friends have logos. That can sting. This is a psychological sacrifice. You're choosing to let people underestimate you now so that later you're the one who quietly doesn't need the job. Even when you dodge status traps, there's another leak people don't notice: the illusion that more choices automatically mean more freedom. Sacrifice number 5, the illusion of endless choice. You probably like having options, different streaming platforms, different phone plans, different gyms, different apps, different boxes, different might-use-it tools. Companies know this. That's why your life slowly fills up with $5, $9, $15 charges. One C+R research study found that people guessed they were spending about $86 a month on subscriptions. But when researchers added everything up, it was actually around $219 a month on average. That's just subscriptions, not groceries, not utilities, just stuff quietly hitting your card. Quick math. Let's be kind and say you're only at $150 a month on subs you barely think about. That's $1,800 a year. In 10 years, you've burned $18,000 on stuff you may not even remember using. Invest even half of that instead, and compounding turns it into real money over time. It feels like more options mean more freedom, but there's a catch. Every extra option is another chance to overspend and another leak in the plan. There's actually a strange sense of relief once you accept this. You pick one phone and keep it for 5 years. Pick 1 or 2 streaming services. Cancel the rest. Pick a good enough gym or work out at home. You're not becoming boring. You're sealing the leak so your money can actually pile up somewhere. Even if you do all of this, there's another enemy that hits you where it hurts most: your feed. Sacrifice number 6. Constant comparison and the algorithm in your head. You're scrolling at night, totally fried from work. Someone your age is in Bali. Someone you went to school with just posted a new apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. Some influencer is showing off a watch that costs more than your car. You start running the mental math. I make okay money. Why does my life look nothing like this? A bunch of recent research ties heavy social media use and materialistic content to more social comparison, more impulsive buying, and more financial stress. Translation: the more you scroll, the more you feel behind, and the more likely you are to spend to close that gap, even if the gap is fake. And remember, you're comparing your whole life to their highlight reel. They're not posting their credit card statement, their rent panic, their arguments about money. You just see the good parts. When you compare like that, you start making money decisions for optics, not outcomes. Trips you can't afford, fancy dinners on a card, clothes you wear twice. So, one of the real sacrifices of building wealth is this: you give up the comfort of fitting in right now. You stop trying to match lifestyles you see on a screen. You measure yourself against you last year, not some stranger in Greece. This ties directly into the last sacrifice, the one that hurts the most because it attacks the story we love: the quick win. Sacrifice number 7, the fantasy of quick wins. There's always a hot play, a coin, a meme stock, "this new business model will make you rich in 90 days" pitch. It feels silly to just put money in boring funds when everyone online is bragging about 10x gains. Here's the problem. When researchers look at what real investors actually earn, it's not pretty. A 2025 behavior report based on Dalbar's analysis found that in 2024, the average equity investor earned about 16.5%, while the S&P 500 did roughly 25%. That's almost an 8.5 percentage point gap in a single year, mostly from people jumping in and out, chasing moves, and panicking. The fast play always feels smarter in the moment, but there's a catch. The more you chase quick wins, the less time your money actually gets to grow. Sacrifice number 7. The fantasy of quick wins. There's always a hot play, a coin, a meme stock. This new business model will make you rich in 90 days pitch. It feels silly to just put money in boring funds when everyone online is bragging about 10x gains. Here's the problem. When researchers look at what real investors actually earn, it's not pretty. A 2025 behavior report based on Dalbar's analysis found that in 2024, the average equity investor earned about 16.5%, while the S&P 500 did roughly 25%. That's almost an 8.5 percentage point gap in a single year, mostly from people jumping in and out, chasing moves, and panicking. The fast play always feels smarter in the moment, but there's a catch. The more you chase quick wins, the less time your money actually gets to grow. Quick math. On $10,000 over 20 years, even a 1% difference in annual return can still mean several $1,000s less at the end. And behavior gaps like that study showed are way bigger than 1%. There's no guarantee you'll get those exact returns every year, but small percentage gaps add up fast. Some of you are thinking, but what if I miss the next big thing? What if this is my shot? Here's how I think about it. You don't need one magical shot if you're consistently buying assets for decades. The people who end up wealthy are usually the ones who got boring, not the ones who guessed the right coin in 2021. Take a small slice of your investing money, 5%, maybe 10%, and go wild if you really want to. But let the other 90 to 95% sit in a boring plan that doesn't depend on you being a genius every week. The sacrifice window and the real catch. So those are the 7 sacrifices: your lifestyle, percentage, convenience, immediate gratification, looking rich, endless choice, constant comparison, quick win fantasies. But there's one more thing we need to talk about: the fear that if you start, you're signing up to live like this forever. You're scared these sacrifices will last your whole life. But there's a catch. They only end if you commit to them hard enough for long enough that compounding can take over. This is where we talk about your sacrifice window. Most people are accidentally sacrificing forever, but in the worst way. They sacrifice peace of mind, sleep, and options without building the assets that could end the stress. What I'm talking about is different. It's a time-boxed period where you turn the knobs hard on purpose. You push your lifestyle percentage down. You crush high-interest debt. You redirect convenience, status, and looking rich money into investments. Pick a number that makes sense for you. 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 if you're starting later or very behind. Quick math. Say you're 30 and you decide that from 30 to 40, you're going to live at 70 to 80% of your income. Put 15 to 20% into retirement accounts and a simple taxable investment account. Even with an ordinary salary, you could hit your 40s with 6 figures invested. If you keep contributing at a lower level after that and let compounding work, that pile can grow into a serious safety net by your 50s and 60s. Not because you picked genius stocks, but because you gave them money time, even though the exact returns are never guaranteed. Now compare that to where many people are heading. Right now, surveys using Federal Reserve data show median retirement savings for people in their late 50s to early 60s in the low to mid $100,000, roughly around $185,000, far below what many say they think they'll need, often around $1 million or more. So, yeah, not sacrificing now has its own sacrifice later. Decades of, I have to keep working, even when you're exhausted. I also want to address a big fear that always shows up in the comments. What if I sacrifice my 20s and 30s, and then something happens and I never get to enjoy the money? Honestly, that can happen. Life isn't guaranteed. But if you don't build any margin and something bad happens, you don't just lose the future trip. You lose your present too, because you have zero buffer. A medical bill, a layoff, a family emergency. They all hit harder when there's nothing saved. Building wealth isn't about hoarding money for some perfect retirement fantasy. It's about buying options for your future self and protection for your current self. Another objection: can I just enjoy life now and catch up later when I make more? Maybe. Sometimes income jumps a lot. But what I see over and over is this: when people get raises and never change their habits, their lifestyle just scales with the new number. From a $400 car payment to a $700 car payment. From one streaming service to 6. From the occasional trip to 3 trips, no gap, no compounding, just a nicer version of the same trap. Raising your income is fantastic. I want you to make more. But without the 7 sacrifices we just talked about, more income just means more expensive stress. So let's put this into a simple picture. You sacrifice your current lifestyle percentage. You stop living at 95 to 100% of what you earn and pull it back so there's breathing room. You sacrifice convenience. You cook more. You plan more. You clean your own place. Not forever, but for a season. You sacrifice immediate gratification. You install weight rules. You let the impulse cool before the card comes out. You sacrifice looking rich. You let people think you're average while you quietly build above average net worth. You sacrifice endless choice. You cut the noise. Fewer subs, fewer upgrades, fewer random might-use-it services. You sacrifice comparison. You get out of the highlight reel Olympics and compare yourself only to last year's you. You sacrifice quick wins. You take all the energy you were going to spend chasing hype and aim it at one boring long-term plan. You are giving things up. There's no way around that. You're giving up some comfort, some convenience, some ego, some excitement. But here's what you're buying instead: the ability to walk away from a bad job, the power to help your family without wrecking yourself, the calm when an emergency happens and it's annoying, not life-ending, the option to take a risk, start something, move somewhere, without feeling like one mistake will ruin you. Most people will never choose these sacrifices consciously. They'll sacrifice year after year anyway, but it'll be their sleep, their health, and their sense of control, not their comfort spend. You don't have to live like that. The money system wants you to believe you can keep everything the same and that wealth will magically appear later when you finally make more. The real catch is that wealth usually shows up only for the people who were willing to give some things up early. You don't control the market. You don't control the economy. You don't control every twist life throws at you. But you do control what you sacrifice for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And whether that sacrifice actually buys you freedom or just more of the same. So take a quiet moment after this. Look at your numbers and ask yourself one question. What am I willing to give up now so my future self doesn't have to give up every choice they care about? And if you're brave enough, put your answer in the comments. Just one thing you're actually going to sacrifice for the next year. Not a perfect plan, not a whole spreadsheet, one real move. Your future self is going to look back at that comment one day and be weirdly grateful you hit post instead of scrolling past. If this video helped you, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.